Commander Tall stared out the large viewing window of the Vrex Hegemony observation vessel. His 6 eyes blinked in sequence as he watched the blue-green planet below. Earth looked peaceful from this distance, too peaceful to be interesting. "Status report," he ordered, his mandibles clicking with mild irritation. Officer Nrek approached with a datapad. "Scans complete, Commander. Oxygen, nitrogen atmosphere. Abundant water. Nuclear-level technology at best. No detected energy shields. Primitive space travel limited to their own moon, and unmanned probes." Tall made a dismissive gesture with his upper limbs. "Another primitive world. Add it to the database and mark it for standard acquisition." He turned to his second-in-command. "How many viable workers can we extract?" "Approximately 8 billion potential units," replied Sub-Commander Vren. "They appear physically weak but numerous." "Excellent. The labor camps on Vrex Prime need replenishing." Tall's exoskeleton gleamed under the ship's lights as he moved to the command chair. "Prepare the first wave. Standard protocol. We'll have this planet secured within 1 rotation." "Yes, Commander." Vren bowed slightly before relaying the orders. Tall had overseen 17 planetary acquisitions in his career. None had ever presented a challenge. The Vrex Hegemony's technological superiority ensured quick submission from primitive species. These humans would be no different. Professor Kim Hansol adjusted his telescope on the university observatory roof. The night was clear, perfect for observing the unusual stellar activity he'd been tracking. At 65, he had spent most of his life studying the stars, yet they still filled him with wonder. Professor Kim, his assistant, a young graduate student named Ju, approached with 2 cups of coffee. "It's getting late. Do you want to continue tomorrow?" "Just a few more minutes," Kim replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. "Something strange is." The sky suddenly blazed with light. Kim shielded his eyes as a massive object descended through the atmosphere, trailing fire. Then another, and another. "What is that?" Ju whispered, dropping his coffee cup. Kim stared in shock. "Not meteors. They're changing direction." More lights appeared, spreading across the sky like a swarm of fireflies. Some headed toward Seoul in the distance, others scattered across the horizon. Kim reached for his phone with trembling hands. "We need to call someone. The government. Anyone." A blinding flash erupted from the direction of Seoul. The shockwave reached them seconds later, shattering windows and knocking both men to the ground. As Kim struggled to his feet, he saw the sky filled with strange angular ships. The invasion had begun. General Park Ta-won stood in the emergency command center beneath the Blue House. 36 hours had passed since the first ships appeared. Screens around him showed devastation across the globe. New York, London, Beijing, Moscow. All major cities were under attack. "Status report," he demanded, voice hoarse from hours of giving orders. "Seoul is 60% destroyed," his aide reported. "The aliens have landed ground forces in Gangneum and Yongsan. Our troops are engaging, but their technology." He paused. "Sir, their weapons cut through our tanks like paper." Park studied the tactical display. Communications were failing worldwide. Governments were in chaos. The aliens, calling themselves the Vrex Hegemony, had broadcast a simple message in all languages: submit or be exterminated. "They expect us to surrender," Park said, looking at footage of the smoking ruins of Seoul. "They don't understand humans very well." "Sir?" His aide looked confused. "Throughout history, when has humanity ever simply submitted to conquerors?" Park turned to the communications officer. "Get me connected to whatever military commands are still operational worldwide. It's time we coordinate." The first sign of trouble for the Vrex came in Mumbai. A ground force of alien soldiers had secured the central city when improvised explosive devices detonated beneath their positions. Human resistance fighters emerged from sewers and buildings, attacking with surprising coordination. In Chicago, engineers had discovered that water disrupted the aliens' energy shields. Fire trucks became weapons, their high-pressure hoses disabling alien armor before conventional weapons finished the job. In rural China, farmers ambushed alien dropships with agricultural equipment modified into weapons. What they lacked in technology, they made up for in numbers and determination. Commander Tall could not believe the reports. 3 days into what should have been a routine acquisition, his first wave was in ruins. Nearly 40% of ground forces lost. 12 dropships destroyed. 3 capital ships severely damaged. How is this possible? He demanded, slamming a limb against his command console. They are primitive. They have no energy weapons, no planetary shields. Sub-Commander Vren approached cautiously. Commander, we have analyzed their resistance patterns. The humans are unusual. Explain. Most species we encounter fight conventionally. Their military forces engage our military forces. These humans, Vren hesitated. Everyone fights. Children set traps. Elderly humans direct younger ones. They use primitive tech in unexpected ways. Tall stared at the casualty reports in disbelief. What are these creatures? He whispered. There's more, Vren continued. They're adapting. They've already figured out weaknesses in our shield harmonics. They're modifying their weapons. And the prisoners we've taken, many choose death over capture. They're unlike any species we've encountered. Tall's mandibles clicked nervously. Send the report to High Command. Request reinforcements. Already done, sir. The main fleet has been diverted to this sector. They'll arrive in 6 months. Tall turned back to the viewing window, watching the planet below. Fires burned across continents, yet still the humans fought. 6 months, he muttered. Can we hold position that long? Professor Kim worked furiously in the underground lab. After escaping the university, he had been brought to this military facility, where scientists from around the world were studying captured alien technology. The power core uses principles similar to our nuclear fusion research, he explained to General Park, but far more advanced, if we can understand it. Park nodded. Keep working. We need every advantage. He turned to leave but paused. Professor, why do you think they came here? Kim looked up from his work. Based on their broadcasts and behavior, they see us as resources, workers. They didn't expect resistance. Their mistake, Park said grimly. 2 months later, the first human-modified weapons were deployed against Vrek's positions. Tanks retrofitted with salvaged alien technology rolled into battle. Fighters equipped with reverse-engineered energy weapons took to the skies. Commander Tall watched from orbit as another ground base fell to human forces. His remaining ships were surrounded, unable to retreat without abandoning their ground troops. Pride prevented him from withdrawing completely. They learn too quickly, he told Vren. They adapt. They cooperate despite their differences. The main fleet will arrive soon, Vren assured him. Then these humans will understand true power. Tall wasn't so certain anymore. Prepare a complete analysis of human combat tactics and technology adaptation. The fleet commander must be warned. As he watched Earth through the viewing window, Tall felt something unusual for a Vrek's commander: doubt. The Hegemony had conquered hundreds of worlds with ease, but these humans fought differently. They fought with desperation, ingenuity, and a savage determination he had never witnessed. What are these creatures? He whispered again, watching as another of his ships fell from the sky in flames. And what will they become if they survive us? Engineer Li Jiwu wiped sweat from her forehead as she delicately adjusted the alien power core. The underground bunker was hot despite the cooling systems working at maximum capacity. Hundreds of engineers and scientists worked around her, but everyone kept their distance from her workstation. What she was doing was both vital and extremely dangerous. Careful, she muttered to herself. One wrong connection, and this whole mountain becomes a crater. The captured Vrek's power core glowed with an eerie purple light. 6 months of study had revealed its secrets, but implementing them was another matter entirely. If her calculations were correct, the modified fighter jet would be able to generate the same energy field that protected alien vessels. Better yet, it would be tuned to penetrate those same shields. Colonel Baek Minho approached her workstation. Unlike most military officers who visited the facility, he understood enough engineering to be useful rather than just asking when things would be ready. "How close are we?" he asked quietly. Lee connected the final coupling and stepped back. "It's done. At least, the installation is complete." She looked up at him with tired eyes. "If this works," she told Colonel Baek, "we can penetrate their shields. And if it doesn't work," she shrugged, "then we keep fighting with sticks and stones against their lasers until the end comes." Colonel Baek put a hand on her shoulder. "It will work. It has to." He glanced at his watch. "The test flight is scheduled for 600 tomorrow. Get some rest." Lee nodded but knew she wouldn't sleep. Not with the main Hegemony fleet approaching Earth. Not with humanity's future hanging in the balance. Across the globe, humanity had united against extinction. Old enemies now fought side by side. In what had once been the Korean demilitarized zone, soldiers from north and south worked together to build massive defensive emplacements. In the Middle East, Israeli and Palestinian fighters trained new recruits in urban warfare tactics that had proven effective against the first wave of aliens. The United Nations had been replaced by the Earth Defense Alliance, headquartered in the vast underground complexes beneath the Swiss Alps. Resources were shared. Technology was pooled. Ancient hatreds were set aside in the face of annihilation. In the Alliance Command Center, representatives from nearly every nation watched the massive view screen with dread. The Hegemony fleet had been detected crossing Jupiter's orbit. Thousands of ships, far more than the first invasion force. "How much time do we have?" asked the Russian representative. 36 hours at their current speed," replied Admiral Song, the head of the Alliance's Space Monitoring Division. "We're tracking over 3,000 vessels. And how many operational fighters do we have with the new shield penetrators?" Admiral Song's expression was grim. 57, if Engineer Lee's prototype works tomorrow." Silence fell over the room. 57 modified fighters against thousands of alien warships. "It will have to be enough," said General Park, who had risen to become the Alliance's military commander. "We've faced worse odds." No one mentioned that this wasn't actually true. No one had ever faced worse odds. Engineer Lee stood on the airfield as the test pilot climbed into the modified F-35. Dawn was breaking over the mountains, painting the sky pink and gold. It looked too peaceful for what was coming. "All systems are showing green," the pilot reported through her headset. "Initiating power core sequence now." Lee held her breath as the fighter's engines roared to life, followed by the distinctive hum of the alien power core. The aircraft was enveloped in a faint purple glow. The shield was working. "Shield strength at 90%. The pilot called. "Beginning test flight." The fighter rocketed down the runway and soared into the sky. Lee and Colonel Baek watched as it performed a series of increasingly complex maneuvers. "Now for the real test," Colonel Baek muttered. On cue, a drone launched from the far end of the airfield. It was equipped with salvaged Vrex weapons. The drone fired at the fighter, and Lee's heart stopped as the energy beam approached her creation. The beam splashed harmlessly against the purple shield. "It works," Colonel Buck shouted, grabbing Lee in an unexpected hug. "It actually works." Lee allowed herself a moment of joy before the reality of their situation crashed back. "Now we just need to make 1,000 more in 36 hours. The Hegemony fleet arrived with terrible majesty, darkening skies worldwide, as thousands of ships took position around Earth. They expected quick victory. Fleet Commander Zorn looked much like Tall, but his exoskeleton bore the golden markings of the Hegemony's elite warrior caste. He had personally overseen the conquest of 17 worlds and had never known defeat. "Status report," he demanded as his flagship took position over Earth's northern hemisphere. "All ships in position, Commander," his aide reported. Ground invasion forces ready for deployment. And what of Commander Tall's remaining forces? Their ships are maintaining position in high orbit. Commander Tall requests permission to join the attack. Zorn made a dismissive gesture, denied. His failure to subjugate these primitives is an embarrassment. He can watch a proper conquest from a distance. He turned to his weapons officer. Begin the bombardment. Target their largest population centers first. On the view screen, Earth looked small and vulnerable. Zorn felt nothing but contempt for the humans who had caused such unexpected trouble. Their resistance ends today, he stated flatly. The first wave of Hegemony destroyers descended toward Earth's atmosphere. They found hell instead. From hidden bases around the world, Earth's modified fighters rose to meet them. The alien captains were confused when their sensors detected their own shield technology on the primitive human aircraft. Their confusion turned to alarm when the human weapons, simple missiles retrofitted with alien power cores, passed directly through their shields. "Impossible," shouted a Hegemony captain as his ship erupted in flames. On the flagship, Commander Zorn watched in disbelief as the first wave of destroyers was decimated. "How are they penetrating our shields?" he demanded. No one had an answer. The battle raged for 3 days. The Hegemony still had superior numbers and firepower, but the humans fought with desperate innovation. When Vrex ground forces landed in major cities, they found buildings rigged with traps. When their dropships touched down in open areas, hidden artillery opened fire with shield-penetrating rounds. Commander Zorn's flagship shuddered as another explosion rocked the massive vessel. Alarms blared throughout the command deck as systems failed across the ship. "Damage report," he shouted over the noise. "Hull breach on decks 3 through 7, an officer replied, panic evident in his voice. "Shield generators failing. Weapons systems at 30% capacity." "How?" Zorn demanded. "How are they doing this? They were primitives 6 months ago." Through the chaos, Commander Tall approached the command deck. Though technically outranked, he had defied orders and boarded the flagship when the battle began to turn. "You underestimated them," Tall said quietly. "As I did. They're savages," Zorn spat, barely out of their stone age. Another explosion rocked the ship. The lights flickered and went out, replaced by dim emergency lighting. "They don't fight like soldiers," Tall reported as the flagship burned around him. "They fight like cornered animals. And nothing is more dangerous." Zorn stared at the tactical display, watching as more of his ships were destroyed. The humans were targeting command vessels first, disrupting the Hegemony's rigid hierarchy. "Order a retreat," he finally said, the words bitter in his mouth. "We will withdraw to the outer system and regroup." "And then?" Tall asked. Commander Zorn had no answer. For the first time in his long career, he faced an enemy he didn't understand, one that refused to be conquered, that adapted with terrifying speed, that fought with both intelligence and savage determination. As the surviving Hegemony ships disengaged from battle and fled Earth orbit, humans around the world celebrated their unexpected victory. But leaders like General Park and engineers like Li Jiwu knew the truth. This wasn't the end. It was barely the beginning. The Hegemony would return, and humanity would need more than modified fighters next time. They would need to take the fight to the stars. Captain Choi Da-hyun gripped the edge of his command chair as the captured Hegemony cruiser shuddered around him. His stomach lurched violently as the ship jumped to faster-than-light speed. The stars outside the viewscreen stretched into lines, then dissolved into the swirling chaos of hyperspace. "Status report," he managed to say once the initial disorientation passed. Lieutenant Han checked her console. "Drive functioning within acceptable parameters, Captain. All systems nominal." She smiled slightly. "Not bad for a bunch of humans operating alien technology we barely understand." Choi nodded. The ship, renamed Vengeance, had been captured during the second Hegemony attack on Earth 3 months ago. Since then, Earth's best engineers had worked non-stop to understand its systems. This was its first actual mission, a dangerous raid deep into enemy territory. "How long until we reach the Orion Research Station?" Choi asked. "Approximately 4 hours at current speed," replied Navigator Park, "assuming our intel on its location is correct." Choi turned to address the 20 soldiers and scientists who made up his raid team. Their faces showed a mixture of determination and fear, all volunteers, all aware of the danger. "We've got one shot at this," he told his team. "We get the data and we get out. No heroics, no extended engagements. The Vengeance may look like a Hegemony ship, but our power signatures won't fool them for long." "What if we encounter other species at the station?" asked Dr. Kim, the mission's chief scientist. "The intelligence suggests the Hegemony has enslaved dozens of worlds." "We follow protocol," Choi replied firmly. "Potential allies are evacuated if possible. Otherwise, our mission comes first." He stood up. "Get some rest. When we arrive, things will happen fast." As the team dispersed, Choi remained on the bridge, staring at the churning hyperspace outside the view screen. 8 months ago, he had been a simple Air Force pilot. Now he commanded humanity's first starship on a mission that might determine Earth's survival. The Orion Research Station orbited a dead world in a system far from any inhabited planets. Its isolated location made it perfect for the Hegemony's most sensitive research. As the Vengeance approached, Choi watched the massive station grow larger on the view screen. "They're hailing us," Lieutenant Han reported. "Send the identification codes we captured," Choi ordered. "Visual communications off. Audio only." The bridge fell silent as they waited. If the codes were outdated or the Hegemony had discovered they were missing, the mission would fail before it began. After an agonizing minute, the station responded. "Supply vessel identified. Proceed to Docking Bay 4 for inspection." Choi exhaled slowly. "Take us in, Navigator. Boarding team, prepare for deployment." The Vengeance glided smoothly toward the designated docking bay. As they approached, Choi activated the ship-wide communication system. "All personnel, final briefing. Our window is 30 minutes. The inspection team will board us in approximately 5 minutes. Neutralize them quietly, then proceed with the mission. The data we seek is in the central computer core. Dr. Kim's team will extract it while Major Lee's soldiers secure our escape route." The ship shuddered slightly as it docked with the station. Choi felt sweat beading on his forehead, despite the cool temperature of the bridge. "Good luck," he said. "Remember, 30 minutes, then we leave, with or without you." The raid proceeded more smoothly than anyone had dared hope. The Hegemony inspection team, 4 officers, was overpowered without raising an alarm. Dressed in the aliens' uniforms, Major Lee's soldiers spread through the station, neutralizing opposition with silent, efficient precision. Dr. Kim led her team to the computer core, a massive chamber filled with glowing crystalline structures. "Fascinating," she whispered. "Their data storage technology is organic in nature. Admire it later," her assistant said. "We have 22 minutes left." Dr. Kim nodded and connected her specialized interface device to the main terminal. Earth scientists had developed it based on captured Hegemony technology. "Downloading now. Let's hope their security isn't as advanced as their hardware." The download progressed rapidly. 15 minutes into the mission, they had already acquired terabytes of valuable data. Hegemony fleet movements, weapons specifications, research projects. Then Dr. Kim gasped. "Captain, are you seeing this?" On the bridge, Choi watched as new data streamed to his console. "What am I looking at, Doctor?" "Star charts, hundreds of inhabited worlds. And these," she sent another file. "These appear to be species profiles. Dozens of alien civilizations conquered by the Hegemony. Some are listed as restive or requiring additional control measures." "Potential allies," Choi murmured. "Download everything." At that moment, alarms began blaring throughout the station. "We've been discovered. Major Lee reported over the comm. Security forces are mobilizing. How many? Too many. We need to leave now. Choi checked the mission timer. 26 minutes elapsed. Dr. Kim, status of the download. 90% complete. 2 more minutes. You have one, Choi replied. Major Lee, begin withdrawal to the ship. Use suppressing fire if necessary. Stealth is no longer our priority. The next 60 seconds were chaos. Through the ship's sensors, Choi watched as his team fought their way back through the station. Hegemony security forces fell before human weapons, but more kept coming. Download complete, Dr. Kim shouted. Get back to the ship, Choi ordered. Bridge crew, prepare for emergency departure. As the last team members sprinted aboard, Choi didn't wait for the docking clamps to release. Full reverse thrust. The Vengeance tore free of the station, metal screaming as docking mechanisms sheared away. Hegemony defense turrets opened fire, but the ship's shields, now fully understood and enhanced by human engineers, held firm. Jump to hyperspace as soon as we clear the gravity well, Choi ordered. The Vengeance accelerated away from the station, dodging energy beams and missile fire. When they reached safe distance, Navigator Park activated the FTL drive. The stars stretched into lines, and they were gone. The raid on the Hegemony research station succeeded beyond expectations. The data they recovered was a treasure trove of strategic information. Humanity now knew the locations of every Hegemony world, and evidence that other conquered species might join their cause. In the weeks that followed, Earth's leadership debated the next move. Some advocated immediate contact with potential alien allies. Others suggested striking vulnerable Hegemony outposts to build up Earth's fleet. General Park, now Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Forces, chose a bolder strategy. We strike at their heart, he declared in the council chamber beneath Geneva. The shipyards of Vrex Prime. If we destroy their ability to build new ships, we buy ourselves time. With what fleet? Asked the Chinese representative. We have exactly 7 captured vessels that can travel faster than light. General Park smiled. Then we'll need to make those 7 count. 3 Earth months later, the shipyards of Vrex Prime burned. Captain Choi watched from the bridge of the Vengeance as human-piloted ships unleashed devastating attacks on the massive orbital facilities. Earth engineers had modified Hegemony weapons, making them more powerful and more efficient. The defenders were unprepared for the enhanced firepower. More surprising was the uprising that coincided with the human attack. 3 species enslaved by the Hegemony had been secretly contacted by Earth agents. As the human ships engaged the orbital defenses, the slaves revolted on the surface and in the lower shipyards. The High Council of the Hegemony, meeting in their citadel on the planet's surface, watched in disbelief as their greatest industrial achievement was systematically destroyed. How is this possible? Demanded the High Counselor. These humans were primitives less than a year ago. They learn faster than any species we have encountered, replied the Counselor of Science. They adapt. They improve upon our own technology. For the first time in generations, the High Council experienced fear. Their empire had lasted for thousands of years. Dozens of species had fallen before them. None had ever struck back so effectively. As the last shipyard collapsed in flames, the Counselor of War received an unexpected transmission. It came directly from the lead human vessel. They wish to speak with us, he said, surprise evident in his voice. Destroy them, the High Counselor commanded. Our weapons are offline, the Counselor of War replied quietly. They could destroy this citadel and everyone in it. He paused. Yet they wished to talk. The message was played for the entire council. General Park's face appeared on the screen, alien to them, but somehow commanding respect. High Council of the Vrex Hegemony, he said, his words translated by captured technology. Your shipyards are destroyed. Your fleet is scattered. Your enslaved worlds rise against you. We could continue this war until your civilization is ash. He paused, and what he said next stunned the council to silence. Instead, we offer peace. Withdraw from Earth space permanently. Free your enslaved worlds. In return, we will help you rebuild, not as conquerors, but as equals in the galaxy. This offer expires in one planetary rotation. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in shocked silence. Remarkable, the Counselor of War said finally. They could destroy us, yet they extend a hand. It is a trick, spat the High Counselor. Is it? Asked the Counselor of Science. They have shown they can defeat us. What do they gain by deception now? As debate raged in the council chamber, Captain Choi and his fleet maintained position above Vrex Prime, weapons ready but holding fire. The future of two civilizations, and perhaps many more, hung in the balance. The Hegemony's ruling caste sat in their grand chamber on Vrex Prime. Golden light filtered through tall windows, illuminating their ornate exoskeletons. The High Counselor raised all four of his upper limbs, signaling for silence. The human offer is rejected, he announced. No species challenges the hegemony and survives. The Counselor of Science shifted uncomfortably. High Counselor, our analysis suggests the humans could potentially. Silence. The High Counselor's mandibles clicked angrily. I have ruled for 300 cycles. I will not be the one who submits to primitives. He turned to the Counselor of War. Prepare the Void Hammer. A murmur ran through the chamber. The Void Hammer was their ultimate weapon, used only twice in Hegemony history. The Planet Killer. Is that wise? Asked the Counselor of War. Using it will drain resources we need for. Do you question me as well? The High Counselor's voice had become dangerously quiet. The Counselor of War bowed his head. No, High Counselor. The Void Hammer will be prepared. On Earth, humans celebrated their victory at Vrex Prime. In the underground command center in Geneva, General Park addressed the Alliance leaders. The Hegemony will respond, he cautioned. Our offer of peace comes from strength, but they may see it as weakness. What can they do? Asked the Brazilian representative. We've destroyed their shipyards. Their fleet is scattered. Before Park could answer, the early warning system blared. A junior officer rushed to his side with a data tablet. Sir, our deep space sensors have detected a massive energy buildup near Vrex Prime. Something big is coming through hyperspace. Park's face darkened. Show me. The main screen displayed a massive object emerging from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. It was unlike any Hegemony vessel they had seen before. A dark, spherical structure surrounded by energy fields that distorted light around it. What is that? Someone whispered. Admiral Kang, Earth's newly appointed Space Fleet Commander, stepped forward. According to the data we captured, it's called the Void Hammer, a planet killer. Silence fell over the command center as the implications sank in. Time to impact, Park asked quietly. At current velocity, 14 hours. Park's expression hardened. Launch every available ship. We stop it before it reaches Earth. Commander Yoon Sunmai stood on the bridge of the Defiance, Earth's largest captured and retrofitted Hegemony vessel. Around her, a fleet of 70 ships, some human-built, others captured, moved into position between Earth and the approaching Void Hammer. All ships reporting ready, Commander, her executive officer reported. Sunmai nodded. Begin long-range scans. Find me a weakness. The Void Hammer continued its inexorable approach. Initial weapons fire seemed to have no effect on its shields. Energy readings are off the scale, reported her science officer. Whatever's powering that thing, it's unlike anything in the Hegemony database. Sunma studied the tactical display. 14 hours had become 6, and they were no closer to stopping the weapon. What about the drive system? She asked. Can we disrupt its course? Possibly. The propulsion system seems more vulnerable than the weapon itself, but we'd need to get close, dangerously close. Sunmi made her decision. Signal the fleet. We'll focus fire on the propulsion systems. Interceptor squadrons will make close attack runs, while the capital ships provide covering fire. As the order spread through the fleet, Sun Mi knew many wouldn't return from this mission. But they had no choice. Earth's survival depended on stopping the Void Hammer. The battle was brutal and short. Human ships darted around the massive weapon, firing at any perceived weakness. The Void Hammer's defensive systems destroyed ship after ship, but the humans pressed the attack with relentless determination. On the Defiance's bridge, Sun Mi received increasingly desperate reports. Shield strength down to 40%. We've lost the Vengeance and the Soul. The weapon is powering up. Energy readings indicate firing sequence initiating. Sun Mi stared at the tactical display. They had damaged the propulsion system, but not enough to stop the weapon. In minutes, it would be close enough to target Earth. She made the hardest decision of her life. All ships, disengage and retreat to minimum safe distance, she ordered. Then, to her bridge crew, set collision course. Prepare to overload the reactor on my command. Her executive officer stared at her. Commander, that's suicide. It's the only way, she replied calmly. The Defiance is the only ship with enough mass to disrupt its course. She opened a ship-wide channel. All personnel, abandon ship. Repeat, abandon ship. As escape pods launched from the Defiance, Sun Mi remained on the bridge with a skeleton crew of volunteers. The massive ship accelerated toward the Void Hammer. Impact in 30 seconds, reported the navigation officer. Reactor overload initiated, added the engineering officer. Core temperature rising. Sun Mi watched as the massive sphere grew larger on the view screen. For Earth, she whispered. The Defiance slammed into the Void Hammer's propulsion section. Simultaneously, its reactor exploded with force multiplied by the alien technology humans had integrated into it. The impact and explosion didn't destroy the Void Hammer, but it did what Sun Mi had hoped. It knocked the weapon off course, sending it tumbling away from Earth. No one expected what happened next. As the damaged Void Hammer tumbled through space, its weapon core destabilized. A massive energy surge erupted from the sphere, tearing a hole in the fabric of space-time itself. The rift expanded, a swirling vortex of impossible energies. From Earth and surviving fleet vessels, humans watched in awe and terror as the rift stabilized. Then, something began to emerge. First one ship, then another, then dozens. They were unlike anything seen before, not Hegemony design, not human. Black, angular vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. On the emergency command ship, Admiral Kang received an urgent transmission from Vrex Prime. The translator struggled with the Hegemony language, but the message was clear enough. Flee while you can. The Void Eaters have returned. Within days, a Hegemony diplomatic vessel arrived at Earth. For the first time, humans met face-to-face with the highest-ranking Hegemony official ever to visit their planet, the Counselor of Science himself. The Void Eaters, gasped the Hegemony ambassador as he watched footage of the strange ships. The legends were true. General Park and Admiral Kang exchanged glances. Explain, Park demanded. The Counselor's translator conveyed his words. Before the Hegemony rose to power, our ancestors faced extinction at the hands of the Void Eaters. They came from beyond known space, consuming all in their path. Worlds were not conquered but completely stripped of all resources, including all life. How were they defeated? Asked Admiral Kang. They weren't, replied the Counselor. They simply disappeared. 10,000 years ago, many believed they were just legends to frighten children. He gestured at the screen. But now they have returned. Reports were already coming in. 3 outlying Hegemony worlds had gone silent. The Void Eater ships moved with impossible speed, their weapons capable of cutting through any known defense. This new enemy had nearly destroyed the Hegemony millennia ago. Now they returned to finish their work. Why come to us? Park asked. We were at war. The Counselor's posture showed what humans now recognized as shame. The High Counselor and his supporters have been removed from power. I now speak for a hegemony that seeks alliance, not conquest." He paused. "We have technology, but you humans have something we lack: adaptability, creativity. You accomplished in months what would take us centuries." As reports continued to arrive, the scope of the threat became clear. The Void Eaters weren't just targeting the hegemony. They were systematically moving through space, consuming everything in their path. Earth would eventually be in their way. In orbit above a burning hegemony colony world, evacuation ships struggled to escape the Void Eater assault. Massive black ships methodically destroyed defense platforms and fired on the surface, beginning the process of stripping the planet bare. A fleet of evacuation vessels, packed with hegemony civilians, desperately tried to reach the hyperspace jump point. Void Eater ships moved to intercept them. Then something unexpected appeared on their sensors. A fleet of human vessels dropped out of hyperspace, placing themselves between the evacuees and the Void Eaters. "This is Captain Kim of Earth Alliance Vessel Horizon," transmitted the lead ship. "Hegemony vessels, proceed to the jump point. We'll cover your retreat." The human ships engaged the Void Eaters in a furious battle, buying time for the evacuees to escape. Many human vessels were destroyed, but they accomplished their mission. Back on Earth, the hegemony leadership watched in disbelief as humans sacrificed themselves to save their former enemies. "Why?" asked the new High Counselor. "Why would you help us after what we did to your world?" Admiral Kang looked at him steadily. "Emotion is not weakness," he told the hegemony leaders. "It gives us something worth fighting for. And right now, we're fighting for all sentient life." The High Counselor considered this. "Then perhaps we have much to learn from humans after all." The dead star hung in space like a black wound, its gravity still pulling at the fabric of reality. Around it, the Void Eaters had built their gateway, a massive ring structure that pulsed with sickly green energy. Through this portal, more of their ships continued to arrive from whatever dark dimension they called home. For 3 months, the combined fleets of humanity and the hegemony had fought a desperate holding action as worlds fell one by one. 7 former hegemony planets had been stripped bare, their surfaces reduced to lifeless rock. 2 human colonies had suffered the same fate. The Void Eaters consumed everything: metals, organic matter, even atmosphere, leaving nothing behind. Now the Allied fleet gathered for one final desperate attempt to close the gateway. Major Ryu Jinho stood on the bridge of the flagship Horizon, named in honor of the vessel lost in the first engagement with the Void Eaters. As weapons officer, he would coordinate the attack on the gateway's energy nodes, if they could get close enough. "All ships report ready, Admiral," he informed Kang, who stood calmly at the command station. Admiral Kang nodded. "And our hegemony allies?" Commander Vrek signals his fleet is in position. Ryu couldn't keep a note of surprise from his voice. Just 6 months ago, they had been bitter enemies. Now their survival depended on fighting together. Kang turned to address the bridge crew. "The plan is simple but dangerous. The science team believes the gateway relies on 6 primary energy nodes. Destroy those nodes simultaneously, and the gateway collapses." He paused. "The difficulty is getting close enough. The Void Eaters have concentrated their defense fleet around the gateway." On the tactical display, the situation looked grim. Over 300 Void Eater vessels guarded the gateway. The Allied fleet numbered just over 200 ships, a mix of human and hegemony vessels. "The attack begins in 30 minutes, Kang concluded. "To your stations." As the bridge crew dispersed, Commander Vrek approached. The hegemony officer's gold-flecked exoskeleton marked him as a high-ranking military leader. He moved with the careful precision of his species, mandibles clicking softly as he spoke through his translator. "We won't survive this," the hegemony commander said bluntly. "The odds are impossible, even by your human standards." Major Ryu smiled grimly. "That's what everyone keeps telling us humans. We never listen." Vrek's compound eyes studied Ryu for a moment. Your species continues to confound me. You face certain death, yet you smile. We smile because we're still here to fight. Ryu replied. Every day we survive is another day we might find a way to win. Admiral Kang joined them. Final preparations are complete. Commander Vrek, is your special weapon ready? The Hegemony officer's posture stiffened with pride. The gravity lance is prepared. It will create a temporary disruption in the gateway's defensive shields, enough for your assault teams to target the nodes. Then we proceed as planned, Kang said. May fortune favor us all. The battle began with a simultaneous attack from 3 directions. Hegemony cruisers led the assault from above the gateway plane, while human carriers launched fighter squadrons from below. The third attack group, a mixed force of human and Hegemony ships, approached directly. The Void Eaters responded with terrifying efficiency. Their black ships moved in perfect coordination, energy weapons slicing through space. The first wave of Allied fighters dissolved into expanding clouds of debris. From the weapons station, Ryu directed the Horizon's batteries, targeting any Void Eater ship that came within range. The massive battleship shuddered as return fire impacted its shields. Shield strength down to 60%, reported the defense officer. Kang remained calm. Continue advance. All ships maintain formation. The Allied fleet pushed forward, suffering heavy losses. For every Void Eater ship destroyed, 3 Allied vessels were lost. But they had expected this. The plan depended on reaching a specific position. Approaching firing range for the gravity lance, Vrek announced from his position at the auxiliary command station. All ships, prepare for Phase 2, Kang ordered. The Hegemony flagship, a massive dreadnought nearly twice the size of the Horizon, moved into position. Its forward section opened like a blooming flower, revealing the gravity lance, a weapon so powerful it had been banned by Hegemony law, except in the most dire circumstances. Energy built up around the weapon, distorting the space around it. Then a beam of concentrated gravitational force shot toward the gateway. Where it struck, space itself seemed to warp and bend. The gateway's shields flickered and partially collapsed. Shield disruption successful. Vrek called out. You have 4 minutes before they regenerate. All assault teams, begin your attack runs, Kang commanded. 6 squadrons of modified bombers, 3 human, 3 Hegemony, accelerated toward the exposed energy nodes. Void Eater ships moved to intercept them, but the Allied fleet poured covering fire into the defensive screen. The Horizon rocked violently as multiple hits broke through its weakening shields. Hull breach on decks 3 through 7, reported the damage control officer. Fires reported in the port weapons bay. Keep firing, Kang ordered. We need to keep them off those bombers. Ryu watched the tactical display with growing dread. The bomber squadrons were being decimated before reaching their targets. Only 8 of the original 36 remained. They're not going to make it, he said quietly. Kang's face was grim as he watched the same display. Then his expression changed as he came to a decision. Major Ryu, you have command of the weapons. Commander Vrek, please take over coordination of the fleet. He straightened his uniform. I'm going to the auxiliary control room. Admiral. Ryu was confused. There was nothing in the auxiliary control room that couldn't be done from the bridge. The bombers won't reach their targets, Kang said simply. But the Horizon can. Understanding dawned on Ryu's face. No, sir. There must be another way. There isn't. Kang's voice was firm. Our drive system is damaged but functional. If we can reach the gateway core and detonate the reactors, the resulting explosion should collapse it permanently. Vrek's translator couldn't fully convey the emotion in his voice. This is suicide. This is necessity, Kang replied. Begin evacuation procedures. All non-essential personnel to escape pods immediately. As klaxons sounded throughout the ship, Kang addressed the remaining bridge crew. It has been my honor to serve with all of you. Those who wish to leave should do so now. I need only a skeleton crew to pilot the ship to its final destination. No one moved. Ryu stood at attention. "We stay with the ship, Admiral." Kang nodded, emotion briefly crossing his face. "Then let's make it count." The Horizon's remaining weapons fired continuously as the massive battleship changed course, driving straight toward the gateway. Void Eater vessels swarmed around it, sensing the danger, but the Allied fleet closed ranks around the flagship, sacrificing themselves to clear a path. In the auxiliary control room, Kang and a small crew worked to override safety protocols on the ship's reactors. "Reactor overload in progress," reported the engineering officer. "We'll have approximately 30 seconds after we enter the gateway before detonation." Kang watched as the gateway grew larger on the view screen. "All remaining crew to escape pods." "That's an order." This time, most obeyed, though a few, including Ryu, remained at their posts. "You should go, Major," Kang told him. Ryu shook his head. "Someone needs to make sure we hit the target, sir." The Horizon plunged into the swirling energies of the gateway core. Alarms blared as the ship's hull began to disintegrate under the strain. 20 seconds to detonation," announced the computer. Through the dissolving view screen, they could see the source of the Void Eater's power, a swirling vortex of dark energy, somehow harvested and controlled by alien technology beyond their understanding. "For Earth," Kang said quietly. "For all of us," Ryu added. When the Horizon's reactors detonated, the explosion was magnified by the gateway's own energies. A shockwave of destruction ripped through the structure, shattering the ring and collapsing the vortex. From a safe distance, the remaining Allied ships watched as the gateway imploded, taking with it the connection to the Void Eater's home dimension. The enemy vessels still in the galaxy suddenly stopped, their controlling intelligence apparently cut off. The final battle was over. At tremendous cost, they had won. In the years that followed, a new coalition formed among the stars. The Galactic Alliance, as it came to be known, united former enemies and liberated worlds in common cause. Humanity and the Hegemony became founding members, their bitter past set aside in favor of a shared future. Earth, once considered primitive, became a center of innovation and diplomacy. The adaptability and creativity that had saved them from the Hegemony, then from the Void Eaters, now served to build bridges between wildly different species. 20 years after the Battle of the Dead Star, a grand memorial was unveiled in orbit around Earth. It depicted human and Hegemony hands clasped together, forged from metals contributed by every member world of the Alliance. At the dedication ceremony, the Hegemony's chief historian, once the counselor of science who had first come to Earth seeking alliance, presented a new volume of the Great History, their civilization's most sacred text. "We have added this wisdom to our teachings," he announced to the assembled dignitaries. "Beware the rage of humanity when threatened, for no force can stand against them. But cherish their friendship, for their capacity for forgiveness is equally boundless." The human representative, a gray-haired General Park, accepted the book with a bow. "We too have learned. Strength without compassion leads only to destruction. Together, we are stronger than we ever could be apart." As the ceremony concluded, ships from 100 worlds formed an honor guard around the memorial. Among them flew the new Defiance, named in honor of the ships and crews who had sacrificed everything, so that life throughout the galaxy might continue. On its hull, written in the languages of all Alliance members, was inscribed a simple message: "Beware the rage, welcome the light."